Hi, this is Connor Livingston. I'm showing off my project here, Penguin Slide. As you can see, I have a fancy GUI that I made in the NetBeans editor, as well as some that I used in pure code. So I'll show off how the game works, where here you choose play single player, and you get to choose level. So option over here is that you get to play your own levels that you made, which I'll show off later. And then I've also included 10 levels that I've designed. So I'll start with level 1 here. So here's the main game. Right here you have your character, which you control, and the objective, which you're trying to get to, and the things that are in the way. These are all the walls, along with these broken walls here that break when you hit them. So to control the game, you just use the arrow keys. So I'm going to go down, and then go to the right, up, and then, as you can see, when you hit the broken wall, you stop in place, and you can't go through these solid walls. And to win, I'm just going to have to go to the right, and then there we go. It shows a "You win" dialogue that I made, and I'm going to return to the level chooser. So let's step ahead to a bit of a higher difficulty level, level 7. So right now you can see how it gets a lot more complicated. So if I was to go to the left right here, I would probably, there's nowhere to go, so it tells me that I'll be sliding forever and that you can try it again, which resets the level. You can also reset the level by pressing space. So if I go down here and I'm going to press space key, go back to the original spot, or if you break a wall, it goes back to how it was when you press space right there. So to beat this level, it takes a bit of thinking. I'm going to go up there, which breaks that wall, to the left, up, over here, and then you go down here, go up, over here, down, and there we go. Just go to the right and we win the level. There we go. At the top left here, you can press back to go back to the main menu screen, and there's also how to play, which I skipped over. It just tells you the rules, which you should understand from what I explained to you. So you can now try out the level designer, which is one of the main things that I included to design levels for myself and design levels for the user who wants to do it. So you have your main things on here. You have the normal wall, the breakable wall, your character, and the objective you're trying to get to. At the bottom you have some options, the extra walls you can start with, the broken walls to start with, which show up in a bottom panel that allow you to drag them while you're playing the level. There's also a multiplayer feature, and the invisible edges, which means that you can't keep sliding forever like I showed before. And one of the best features that I included is the size of the grid, which you can use to dynamically resize the level to make exceedingly complicated levels here, or very simple levels here. And that scales all the icons as well. So I'm going to start off the default as 60, which is reasonable difficulty level. And design, you drag the character and they snap to the grid, which is for designing. If you were to drag it here, that would, for the normal things like the wall here, if you're outside the grid area, it'll want to delete it, and as soon as you click that, it'll delete it and generate a new one here. So you can only design levels inside the square that we have here. And design level, you can just make a basic one here. So when you're designing it, you think of what you're going to do. So you want the character to slide there, maybe be stuck there, there, Alright, there we go, and we can add some more things here just to confuse the user a bit more. And on this level I will include an extra wall to drag around for yourself instead of having this one here, so the user is going to have to figure out that they'll need to use that one, so I'll delete that one. And now we can save level, load level, which is good if you want to change level around, or we can exit the main menu. So I'm going to do test level, where it'll ask you to save the level, so I've got a few other levels saved here, with the PSM extension, Penguin Slide Map. So I'm going to call this one test level and click save. It'll let you know that it's saved correctly, and now you're right into the game. So you can use this extra wall here that I was talking about just to put over here, and to beat the level it's going to need to be a bit lower, and there you go. As soon as you start sliding, another feature is you cannot drag things until you reset the level, which allows you not to cheat pretty much. So now I can just beat this one by going up over here. And as you can see, the grid's pretty easy for designing levels, and there we go, I won. Awesome. Now I'm going to show you some of the code that I have. So one of the things that I used a lot in my project was a lot of classes and methods, which helped with my organization. So we have the main one here, where all it does is create the main menu. Alright. For some, I decided to use pure code, and for the other ones, I decided to use the NetBeans editor. For example, the GUI here, it's all hard code because it allows me to customize the way that I want it from loading the level, right? But in some, like the level chooser, I decided to use the NetBeans built-in GUI editor because it was just a lot easier for designing and having a nicer interface without having to fiddle around too much. So right now you can see I'll choose level and all the buttons. You can see the code, and then runs over there. I also used a separate variables class, which was used to hold all the important values that I didn't want to have to pass around too much. So some of the important things, like if it's a developer map, which decides where it's going to load the level from, because in the game folder there's a maps folder, which is for developers one, but if you're using your own levels, then it makes a folder in the My Documents, My Games Penguin Slide. And there's also some other important things that I wanted to save around here. This is a fair bit of code, so separating in classes really helped me out. Like the GUI here is 536 lines, and then the engine, which is used mostly for collision detection and stuff, is also another 500 lines here. I have some fairly advanced code that I wanted to show off here, like my collision detection. Like for example here, this is the check for collisions method, and you call character number, which would be 1 or 2 for depending on what character you want to check for collisions with. You call the feature character coordinates, which determines where the character would be going, gets the character or the coordinates of what you're going to collide with, checks for collisions using these two methods, and then this one right here is for if you win. This one's for if you're colliding with a wall, and there's some for broken walls or the extra walls. It's all pretty advanced stuff. One of the most advanced things that I had to do was for the save and load class. So right here, this is when you call this save game, where it passes all the things that you would want to save, the character, the objective, all the walls array, which I had to dynamically size depending on if you're deleting one or something like that. So it holds an output string here, which outputs all the important things, and it checks. For example, there's a lot of checking to make sure that something's going right. Like for this one here, if the character 2 is at -500, which means that multiplayer is not enabled, then it will only do character 1. Otherwise, if it's 2-player, then it'll output player that there's 2 players, X and Y, width and height, and have both characters, and then the objective. This one checks if there's even any walls or not, and outputs that, broken walls. And then here's where the actual saving happens. So to get the directory, I get the default directory here, and then my game's Penguin Slide, which creates it if it doesn't exist. That's this line here. This is to save if it's overwriting, and it limits it to the PSM extension, which I created. And this is all some of the more advanced things to check if it's overwriting anything. Also checks if you've already typed in the .psm at the end. And then there's output, which uses the file writer, and then it also lets you know that you saved correctly or if you did not save correctly. And the load game is similar code as well. One thing I forgot to touch on was my multiplayer, so I'll just show that off quick. You can, in the level designer here, you can create multiplayer levels, so that's character 1, that's character 2. I created some levels here, so level 5 you can see is a lot smaller. So to control character 1, use the arrow keys as normal, right? And then to control character 2, use the WSD keys. So to create this, to beat this level, you need a combination of both characters. So right here I'm going to move them both to the left. And then I'm going to move character 1 up so he can stick onto that character and then get this way here, otherwise he would not be able to have made it. And then I'm going to use character 2 to move here, and then it's going to collide with character 1 so it can get to beat the level here. And let's know that you won. So thank you for having a look at my game Penguin Slide. Thank you for your consideration.